Hello, my name is Rhea, spelt R-H or H depending on where you're from. I usually say H, but for the purposes of being Australian I say H, E and A. Irish people also say H for some reason, even though they never had H dropping, which is weird. Anyway, this comes from ancient Greek. It wouldn't have been spelt like this, it would have been spelt like, let me Google it real quick. Pea. This is a voiceless alveolar trill. Not found in many languages, but it is found in Welsh. Let's use the leftover space to write some international phonetic alphabet. Then afterwards we get this, E, making about this sound, and then R, which makes about, some people write it like this, but I prefer to write it with a small capital A, as is the established convention in sinological phonetic notation. But wait, there's more. You see this little accent here, this acute accent? Well, that indicates that there is a high tone on the E. As far as I'm aware, ancient Greek wasn't a tonal language like Chinese, it had pitch accent. Which a bunch of, some Slavic languages still have pitch accent, some Scandinavian languages have pitch accent, so it's kind of, that's a thing all throughout Europe, but it's not quite tone. A lot of Indo-European languages do have tone, like especially towards India, because don't forget, English and ancient Greek and Latin are also related to Sanskrit and all that mob over there. And there is also Afrikaans, which is developing tone right now. I made a video about that! Now my name gets its spelling from the Romans. Now the Romans had the letter R, which meant R, but it didn't quite work for the sound because that's voiceless and R is voiced. So what they did was they put an H after it because H is a voiceless sound, and so they combined to make a voiceless version of R, which is Now we move from the Mediterranean over to the British Isles, where these fucked up little guys called English people are reading texts written in Latin, and they see this word and they know, I think from the French they probably get it, and they end up saying it something like this: alveolar trill, and then the long air sound, and then a schwa at the end, because English reduces all of its unstressed syllables. So the final turns into an The voiceless trill also becomes voiced because English doesn't have in it. It just has Now this is how Rhea would have been pronounced around the year 1800 by an educated Englishman. But a few changes started to happen, and by the end of the 1800s it was pronounced a lot differently. First of all, that initial sound had weakened in England from an which remains in Scotland and some other places a little bit. Scotland retains it stronger than anyone else though. Instead it becomes an approximate so it changes from Rhea to Rhea, and there might be some people watching who still say it like this. Then we get to that long air sound, which also appeared in words like face and place and wait. Again, a lot of people still say those words like that today, but for a person living in the south of England, it changes to A, so we get Rhea. In fact, there will probably be some Americans watching who say Rhea. But how come I don't say it Rhea? How come I say Rhea? Well, it's because my ancestors moved from the west country of England to South Australia in the mid to late 1800s. Then they made their way out of South Australia immediately. They immediately left, and they moved all of their sheep to this little spot in Western Australia in the Murchison region. The Murchison region is the most beautiful place on the earth. I will not hear it insulted. I grew up there. It constitutes my soul. In fact, I speak the local indigenous language of that area, Buddy Maya. Regardless, people in Australia had two extra changes to make to this pronunciation. First of all, the A vowel in face and wait dropped even further. So it changed from wait and face to wait and face, and then Australians got a hold of it, and oh boy, we mangled it, let me tell you. By the time we were done with it, it didn't sound like wait and face anymore, it sounded like white and face. This is the pronunciation my dad has, so my dad says Raya. Oh, did you hear that at the end? Did you hear that? That wasn't Raya, that was Raya. The schwa sound phonetically turns into an sound at the end of words, and that happens with a lot of Australians. I say it in like, I don't know, summer, but I don't do it consistently, so it's not a full level phonemic change, it's just a surface level phonetic change. There's also a bunch of other reasons why it's not phonemic. There's two other things that we need to get to. In fact, I'm going to make this from a phonemic transcription into a phonetic transcription. So we're not looking at the underlying sounds here as they like systematically are, we're just looking at the surface level way that the word sounds. Now I'm a bit younger than my dad, sensibly, so I don't always say A in words like, I don't know, face. I often say A with instead of it starting at A and moving up to I, it starts at A like in the word cat, it starts at that same vowel and moves up to s. So I say face. But I still do sometimes use this variant in words like place and wait and Rhea. The very last thing that we need to look at here, right? We've got the schwa at the end changing from to Now we've just got to take care of this little guy, because I don't say Rhea all the way. I don't say Rhea all the time, like really articulating that I. I kind of level it down a little bit so that my tongue has to do less movement. The most accurate way you could write it, I guess, would be like this. So it starts at Rhea. Between and there's a lot less movement than My tongue has to do a lot less to change in Rhea than Rhea. So there you go. This is my name. I've done the very bare minimum of introducing myself to you. I will add there are a few other ways you can pronounce this name as well. For example, Rhea Ripley. She says it like Rhea. In the International Phonetic Alphabet, Rhea would be written like this. We have the consonant the long vowel E, and then the schwa It frustrates me, by the way, that I should write it like this for E, like in fleece and keep and heat, when that's audibly a diphthong. Anyway, why do people pronounce it like Rhea? Well, that's because the E and the A at the end of the word kind of remind you of words like idea or career. But here's the thing, right? Rhea is a chosen name. I picked that name out for myself. Yes, I am transgender, and if you have a problem with that, don't talk about it in the comments section. I'm just going to remove your comment and automatically remove any future comments you make, and I'm also going to forcibly remove your organs with a pair of spondonicles. But I picked this name out for myself, which means I can pick the pronunciation. So why did I pick Rhea instead of Rhea? Well, it's a very simple reason. I, like I said before, am from the Murchison of Western Australia, and in Western Australia, people use the sequence ia in a few more words than in other places. We don't just say it in idea and Rhea and career. We also say it in Hia, Nia, Fia, and of course, Rhea. And I'm not having a name that's homophones with the word for bum. Basically, I'm here because I like linguistics, and there's not a lot of people talking on YouTube about Australia. When that's where I'm from, and I'm doing linguistics, and I'm working with Aboriginal languages, and I'm working with Australian dialects of English, and there's all this information out there, first of all, that hasn't been written about for one thing, and that's part of my job, but there's also all the stuff that has been written about that no one's made YouTube videos about. Does someone need to make videos about it? No, of course not. But I feel like it, okay? So I'm gonna. So there you go. You've learnt a little bit about me, you've learnt a little bit about my name, and you've learnt a fair bit, hopefully, about the history of English pronunciation. And that is a lot of what I deal in. But Rhea, I hear you cry. I'm sold on your channel, completely sold, but I don't know what video to watch first. Well, let me recommend some to you. My personal favourite that I've ever made is The Secrets of Australian Roticity, or something like that. And that's a really good one. I worked very hard on it, and talks about some very obscure linguistics that doesn't really get any attention even within the academic realm. Or you can check out my video on the horse-horse merger, which got shouted out by Simon frickin' Roper! I don't mean to alarm you, but I just got a shout out from Simon motherfucking Roper. Or if you want a full-on academic slog, watch my video about a comprehensive guide to the diphthongs of Australian English. Just information overload, but I'm really proud of that one as well. Or if you want to see something that's a little bit more creative, focuses more on conlanging, then you can watch my entry for the 4th Coast Conlang Circus. It's a crazy dramatic tale about vampires and Maine. So yeah, welcome to Rhea's Language Academy. Hopefully one day I'm gonna be like the world's most famous linguist, and I'm gonna have like so much money, and I'm gonna like live in a